good evening, maybe good afternoon, depending upon what time zone you're joining us from. Maybe good morning or happy tomorrow. I'm not sure where everyone's coming from. My name is Lauren. I am the vice president of our Bierman Autism Center's clinical research lab. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's evening in New Jersey, where Michelle and I are joining you from. Bierman Autism Centers is very proud to offer this opportunity for a parent webinar where we are looking to provide information to parents and caregivers in the communities that we support. Tonight, we will be hearing from Michelle Lordello, where she will be providing us information on functional communication and various communication methods. Michelle is a board certified behavior analyst and has been working with children with various developmental disabilities, including autism spectrum disorders, ranging from early children to adolescence and early adulthood. She is currently our clinical director in our West Orange and Piscataway centers in New Jersey. Just some housekeeping. Thank you again for joining us. So we will be taking about an hour or so. Everyone is on mute. So if you do have any questions or need any clarifications of anything that Michelle is talking about, please pop it into the chat. And she has left time at the end for a Q&A and to review your thread. So please put anything in there that comes to mind that we can follow up with you about. And this will be recorded, so you should receive a recording within a week or so that you can rewatch at your convenience. So without further ado, take it away, Michelle.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited to do this presentation on empowering your child with functional communication. Um, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to join. Like Lauren mentioned, I'm the clinical director at two locations right now, West Orange and Piscataway. Lauren is our VP of Clinical Research and Innovation Lab, and I'm so grateful for her for this opportunity. She supports heavily with our Pebble Research Department and does a lot of cool things for Bierman. So thank you. Okay, I'm just gonna do a little bit of information about Bierman. If you're not familiar, if you're not a parent already with us, we provide a play-based one-on-one learning environment where our children build foundational skills such as self-advocacy and communication. At Bierman, we recognize that every child's path is unique and we focus on measurable progress tailored to each individual child with our one-on-one approach. We have a fun, engaging approach. We try to blur the lines between learning and play, which fosters confident and motivated learners. We extend this support to families as well with our parent training and collaboration at the heart of our model. We also go by the 5 pillars at Bierman. I'll just run through this quickly. We let kids be kids. We prioritize learning through play. We believe in empowerment, self-advocacy for our kids. We believe in building really strong connections with our families and aligning with shared goals. And we have a commitment to progress. If you are interested in Bierman, we do have a good amount of centers now. We were founded in 2006 in Indianapolis, and we have since expanded to multiple states. Like Lauren said, we are in New Jersey, so we have 6 centers right now, and we are opening up 2 more in the next few months. So that's exciting. Um, all of our Bierman centers operate under early intensive behavioral intervention or the EIBI model. So it's a therapy-based for ABA with young children under 5 with autism spectrum disorder. We are a 40-hour a week program specializing in parent involvement and collaboration, where we also implement specialized training for staff. And our goals are, again, to increase language, social skills, daily living skills, all while reducing problem behavior or interfering behaviors through individual and structured teaching. Just as a disclaimer, throughout this webinar, we will use autistic children and children with autism interchangeably to recognize that different stakeholder groups have different perspectives about person-first language. As a team, we align with the beliefs that if individuals tell us how to refer to them, we follow their preference respectfully. Okay, again, please feel free to leave questions in the chat. I am leaving a good amount of time at the end to respond to them. But yeah, I'm super excited. Today, we're going to go over developmental norms for communication. We're going to talk about a few alternative communication modalities available. I'll go over the pros and cons of using ASL or American Sign Language, speech generating devices, and picture exchange communication system or PECS. I'll talk about how you can choose the right modality for your child. And then we're also going to focus on fostering communication for minimal or nonverbal children as in general, and some tips for you for home. And again, I'll leave questions at the end. Okay, so we'll start a little bit with talking about developmental norms. Um, According to the CDC, there are milestones that are considered developmental norms for communication and language. For example, at 6 months, the CDC states that your child should be reciprocating sounds with you back and forth like a volley, those early conversational skills where the contingencies for listener-speaker relationships start developing. They could also be doing things like blowing raspberries and making squealing noises. Um, by 12 months, your child should be able to wave bye to people with or without prompts. This is also where we start seeing children calling parents by special names like mama or dada. They typically start to understand no, or maybe they'll briefly pause what they're doing after hearing the word no. So, again, those early contingencies are just being created at this time. By 2 years old, you should start seeing some of that receptive language start taking off. So, if you and your child are looking at a book and asking, "Where's the dog's hat?" the child should be able to identify or touch the picture. They're also putting two words together like more, milk. Um, they should be able to start identifying a few body parts on themselves, like if you happen to ask where their tummy is or their nose. They should also be able to show you some gestures other than waving and pointing. So a little more advanced, like blowing a kiss or nodding their head yes. The CDC website has a lot more milestones by different ages that you can take a look at. Um, but I also wanted to go over another guideline for communication milestones. ASHA, or the American Speech Language Hearing Association, has communication guidelines that they go by. This is just additional information to guide decision making for your child. So here we have from 4 to 6 months, your child should be giggling and laughing. When you play with musical toys or books that have musical buttons or those jack-in-a-boxes, or any other toys that make sound, your child should be orienting to the sound, reacting, looking at it, smiling at it. So during play, they're also typically vocalizing, squealing, making silly noises. At about a year old, they should be trying to copy the sounds you make. So similar to the CDC outline, that's when you start seeing those beginner sounds and echoic skills start to emerge. So they start also reaching for objects or for people in their environment. They start to imitating social interaction gestures, so like attempting raspberries and playing peekaboo. Um, you'll see some kids cover their face for you while you're trying to play peekaboo with them, or maybe they'll make the ooh sound for the boo. By 2 years old, they start using words to ask for help. Um, some children start using or understand up to 50 words. And then we start seeing some possessive pronouns. So like my sock or daddy's shoes or mommy's hair. So same thing with the CDC. You can see more milestones from birth to 5 years old on the ASHA website for more information. Just want to make a note that these two slides about developmental norms for communication are estimates. I gave you two resources so that you can see that it's not a perfect science, right? But it's rather a starting point. Each child develops uniquely, even within the same family, and they may meet milestones earlier or later than others. However, if you are concerned about your child's development, don't wait. You do know your child best, and if they aren't meeting one or more of these milestones, or you feel like they may have lost skills that he or she once had, or any other concerns, talk to your child's doctor and ask about a developmental screening. At all of our Bierman Autism Centers, we do provide diagnostic services and evaluations. Please reach out if you need a specialist who can evaluate your child further. Okay, so we are going to get into alternative forms of communication. So we call this, any alternative form of communication, we call AAC, or augmentative and alternative communication. The three modalities that we're going to talk about today are American Sign Language, picture exchange communication system, and speech generating devices. Most of us may be familiar with American Sign Language, or ASL. It's a natural language that uses hand shapes, positions, and movements to communicate. Picture Exchange Communication System, or PECS, is a form of communication that uses pictures to make requests. And I'll show you a few examples of what those look like. Speech generating devices is an electronic form of communication. You typically see these in the form of tablets, iPads, or other similar devices. Um, just throughout this webinar, if you are receiving services under the supervision of a BCBA or a speech therapist, they know a lot more about these, and they know your child's best through their services. So please take information that we share and talk to them about it and see how it can apply to your child or home. Um, so with that being said, at all of our Bierman centers, we do offer a collaborative approach to your child's care. We include speech and occupational therapy on site to maximize coordination of care. This truly allows us to tailor to your child's unique needs. So please reach out to them if you are interested in any of these modalities and see how they can support you best. Okay, so we're going to get into a little more information about our first communication modality. So, American Sign Language, or ASL. Again, I'm sure most of you are familiar with sign language in general. It's a visual language where information is actually processed through the eyes. So, it uses gestures, hand shapes, body movements, and facial expressions. More and more parents are teaching their child simple signs in infancy, such as eat and more and all done. So it's really common now to have a basic understanding of American Sign Language, but we'll get into some pros and cons now. A few pros, excuse me, are that it's very visual and expressive. So those who use their hands to sign, they also use gestures, and they tend to just use their whole body to communicate different emotions and as they make their requests or communicate with someone. There are no materials required, so that's definitely a pro. Sign language can be taught even if there are comorbidities such as speaking, hearing, or visual impairments. Um, Although there are a lot of signs to learn, once the alphabet is taught, you can typically generate novel speech through spelling. So if you aren't sure about how to sign a certain word or a phrase, individuals can typically use spelling and still be able to communicate until they do learn that phrasing. There is also a huge sign language community. So any signers can feel welcome and supported. A few cons to consider when thinking about ASL is the limited audience, right? So we know that sign language isn't a universal method of communication. Not many people outside of the community have experience past the basic understanding of gestures. There are regional variations of sign language as well. So if you learn American Sign Language, it isn't necessarily going to be the same signs in other regions. So some signs do also require fine motor skills or super fine motor skills. So especially when we get into more advanced phrasing. With that being said, there are some small variations in phrasing. So fine discrimination skills are also pretty important, as well as imitation skills. There's also a pretty steep learning curve. So again, take these into consideration when looking for modalities that best suit your family. But let's talk about how you can teach ASL to your student. So, when you're starting to teach signs, start small. We're going to build up a really good foundation with teaching this new modality. So, initially, you want to choose 2 to 3 label signs and 2 to 3 action signs at a time, and teach it consistently in a rotation. So, when thinking about label signs, consider what your child is requesting often, right? So, water, juice, bathroom, maybe different snacks or toys, and even people like mom and dad or siblings. Identify a few of those preferred items and learn the signs. Same thing with the action signs. Important ones that you can combine with the labels are usually the ones that we can start with and have the most success with. So you can start with action signs like more and eat, all done, hug, help, yes, no. So once you've identified a few of those and you've learned how to do them, that's when we can start presenting those signs with their respective labels. So an example would be if you're giving your child tickles, right? Pause for a second, check if they're motivated for more, and then use the sign for more. So after you use the sign for more, go ahead and resume tickling. They don't have to imitate it right away, but you're beginning that exposure, right? So another example would be at meal times, sign eat right before giving them their meals. Um, right before they leave the table or push their plate away, show them the sign for all done. So repetition and a ton of exposure is going to be the most effective here. Continuous exposure, some light prompting to create those hand shapes and pair the signs with their labels. After a few days of teaching them a few signs, try modeling the sign and then waiting 5 to 10 seconds to see if they can do it independently. Make sure to reinforce all of their attempts and any approximations of the signs. It's okay if the shape isn't perfect, right? We want to practice and continue practicing. And eventually, we'll see um, a more clean response, right? So sometimes we'll see different variations of more. Maybe they're not putting their whole hand together, but that's okay, right? As long as they know and that this is the start of me requesting. So if you do decide to go the ASL route, there are a lot of resources available for teaching sign language. You can Google a lot of the different visuals. So to help you remember the signs, to give your student a visual exposure as well. There's also a ton of YouTube videos out there too to help you with the actual movement or shape. There are some flashcards too with common signs for kids, and of course, some easy to read books that have a nice introduction to some of those basic signs, like this baby's first sign language book. The ASL community also has a lot of resources online, so definitely look for a local community near you to get involved and look for more information. Okay, so we're going to move on to our PECS system or our picture exchange communication system. PECS is an evidence-based system where students are initially taught to hand a single picture to a communicative partner to make a request. The traditional way of teaching PECS consists of 6 phases where you're using systematic prompting and reinforcement strategies across the phases, and it gets challenging across the phases as well. Um, you can read more about the specific phases on the PECS USA website, but today we're just going to go over best practices for teaching it initially and how you can simplify it at home. So, a few pros and cons, just like we did for ASL, for PECS. Pros, it's that it's a super structured system to initiate functional communication, especially for that early communication. It focuses on requesting, which of course is a very important skill. Ensuring that our students can request their wants and needs is a priority. There is no limit to the pictures that you can add. So it's super customizable and you can tailor it to your child's interests. Um, it's typically a lightweight system, so usually a small or medium sized binder that isn't heavy to carry around. An example of one of those is on the top right. Um, once you get really advanced with the PECS system, it can be difficult to manage a large number of pictures. Pictures can get lost or damaged pretty easily, especially if they're small or the Velcro gets loose. If new interests come up, you'll need to keep up with adding additional pictures to the board. Also does require a pretty active listener and participant, especially in the beginning stages, because there's a lot of repetition, right? So, teaching PECS to your child requires the availability of materials and, of course, consistency, just like with any modality. Once you have your binder or your board, you want to identify preferred items and common action icon words that your child will be using often. So, similar to ASL, you want to choose things that they have consistent exposure to. So, words like more, help, eat, and preferred items, again, like their favorite toys, snacks, bathroom, water. Um, Initially, you want to place a single picture or icon on the front of the binder when you've identified that your child wants or needs that item. You want to guide your hand to take the picture off the Velcro strip and place it into your hand. And as soon as they do that, that's the response we want. Reinforce it immediately with that item. So, a few ways that we can do this, especially in the beginning, is starting at the dinner table or during a meal time or snack. Give them a bowl of a few pieces of pretzels and have the pretzel icon ready in front of the binder. Once you see them reaching for more pretzels, guide them to hand you the pretzel icon and then immediately reward them with the pretzels. We're going to give them a lot of support in the beginning, and then we're going to start fading our support. So, just like with any other modality, you want to repeat this regularly and with additional pictures. You can start having a few more icons on the front of the page and teach them how to discriminate between the different items. You can even show them how to start flipping through the binder to look for more pictures. Again, the more exposure, the better. Make sure you're always guiding them to the complete action before reinforcing. So they should always be taking off the picture and handing it to you versus just um, taking it off and not doing the reach motion or just touching it. This is okay in the beginning if we're just getting some familiarity with the system, but the complete response is going to make this the most effective. This way, you're creating that super strong connection and correspondence of the picture of the item or the action icon, and then the actual reinforcement of the item and action. And then as you work through this, continue to create and add new pictures as interests arise. So, if you were interested in a picture exchange system for your child, there's so many resources out there that can help you get started. I mentioned this website earlier, pecsusa.com has a ton of free resources for parents and easy to use instructional material. You can even take data on the 6 phases of PECS if you're interested in it. They outline each step in a really easy to understand way. You can purchase your own PECS ready-made binder, which I've done before, and I'll show you a few examples of those. Or you can create your own, which I've also done many times as well, and both ways are effective. Either way is absolutely okay. If you did want to create your own binder, you'll need a few materials to start, but it is the ultimate customization. Um, so laminating sheets, paper, a method of printing, small binder and dividers, and Velcro are where you want to start if you wanted to create your own. So I have two examples of a ready-made binder here. On the left is the starter PECS kit from PECSUSA.com. It's a little bit bigger, so the pictures are a little bigger than others. It includes 150 pictures for you to customize, all pre-made. And if you notice in the pictures are illustrations, so they aren't a real picture of fruit or water. So just something to consider if you notice that your child gravitates or responds better to illustrations of pictures versus real pictures, just like in the Smile for Autism one. So this is another pre-made textbook. It has also about 150 pictures that's already laminated to you for you, and it has real pictures of items. Here are a few examples of homemade boards. So you can see some variation too in some pictures where some items are real and some items are illustrations. So again, your student may respond better to different versions of pictures. But again, this is super customizable and it's really easy to make. Just takes a little time in the beginning, but it is nice if you wanted to make it your own. So oh, I skipped ahead a little, but we are going to move on to speech generating devices. Um, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the tablet system here. Our final modality is the SGD, or the speech generating devices. These are aided forms of communication. So, aided meaning that it requires external tools, such as a tablet based system or computer softwares or applications. Um, the American Speech Language Hearing Association, or ASHA, suggests that speech devices can be considered for individuals who have no speech, limited speech, or unintelligible speech. The current research suggests that there are no necessary skills that a child needs before introducing a device. It's widely accepted that there are no prerequisite skills that everyone should have access to appropriate communication. Skills like fine motor, imitation, scanning can all be worked on in the context of the device. Um, so don't let any of these myths deter you. A common one that I see a lot is that a speech generating device will inhibit the development of speech. But in fact, research shows that it increases the development of language. And there are even instances where you see an increase in vocal speech. So I just wanted to clear that up. But let's get into the pros and cons too. So we're doing this for all of them. Pros, a speech generating device provides immediate audible feedback. So think about a tablet-based system. If you press an icon for cookies, your child will hear the word cookies. It's pretty flexible in adding new words, similar to PECS, except you can just take a picture with the device most of the time, and you don't need to laminate anything. There is no limit to how much vocabulary you can add. So you can always just keep adding more. There isn't, it teaches across all communicative domains and isn't limited to just requesting. You can teach labels, early conversation skills, and more. It's also a really portable system too, just like the PECS. Again, some cons are that it can be difficult to manage a large number of icons and vocabulary pages. A disadvantage is that the device can get lost, damaged, or lose battery power. Some devices are heavier for younger learners depending on the software. Um, And then also, depending on the kind of application we're using, the learner may need to have some early fine motor skills for the smaller icons to make sure that they're able to press the correct button. But some considerations that would make a more successful outcome for any individual using a speech generated device. Um, again, relying on a lot of consistency and regular access across settings with any of the modalities that we're talking about and working on with our students, ensuring that we are being consistent with practicing and modeling the use of the speech generating device to increase their opportunities for language development is critical. So we want to see participation across any communicative partner, right? So anyone that your child will encounter, they should also be practicing the speech generating device. So siblings, teachers, family members. We also want to practice across different environments and situations. Um, we want to increase that generalization and promote independence. During the initial training of the device or when you first get it, try your best to get familiar with the system. Figure out how long the battery lasts so you can always have a backup plan. Consider purchasing a battery bank to keep with you in the event of it dying. You want to, again, ensure that we have regular access to the device. Consider getting a strap for the device so that the child can get used to carrying it around with them. Ensure that it's plugged in nightly to charge. This is even a great routine to involve your child in so they can practice that ownership, right? And again, practice, practice, practice. So, based on some of the conversations I've had with speech therapists, the best method for training some of the responses with a speech generating device is modeling. So I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by modeling a response. Um, so again, we're getting really familiar with the pathways on the device. You want one that does have multiple folders because systems really should be robust and include nouns, verbs, adjectives, different items. We want to ensure wide variety of vocabulary to really increase the effectiveness of communication. So, for best practice, model the entire response you want your child to imitate. So, an example here, the example that we're going to use is the child is going to say, I want apple. You want to press the icons in the order that I have here. So, we're starting with here, I want, or I, and then we're going to press want, and then we're going to go down here and press food. Now, food is a folder icon, so food is going to pop up in a second screen. And this is exactly what we want. We want them to get used to having some of their common words up here that are singular, right? And then going into the folder to get that exact item. So the folder will take you here and then you're going to model the final icon. So you are actually pressing all of these buttons. Um, now that you have shown your child how to request a full sentence, I want apple, that's it's going to pop up in the sentence phrase. You're going to hear it. They're going to hear it. They're going to get that feedback and they're learning through observation. And then also, of course, you're going to give them that apple, right? So show them each time how to do the entire response. Get them used to navigating the folders and pressing multiple icons. And then a quick tip is that make sure as you are developing additional icons and folders, try not to move the placement around too much. They're developing that muscle memory with the iPad, so or the tablet or whatever device we're using. So if they always know that the apple's there. We don't want to mess around with some of the buttons. All right, so how can we get a speech generated device? There are a few ways to acquire one. A common one that we use here at Bierman is ablenet.com. Um, After going on the website, you start by completing an insurance benefit check. You can trial a speech device for 2 days to see if you like it. And once the benefit check is complete, they'll send you over the options for different devices and funding. Another website that we can use is saltillo.com. You can try a few different apps for free for 30 days. And then after your trial is over, it'll direct you to find an AAC consultant for next steps. You can even purchase some apps in the Apple Store or Android devices. An example is TD Snap, a pretty common speech generating device software. It does have a monthly fee, so keep that in mind. And again, you can always go through your speech language pathologist. They're going to evaluate your child. They're going to conduct an AAC assessment, and they're going to fight for funding. So at Bierman, our speech therapists take the guesswork out of this process. They take care of all the paperwork, evaluations, and fight to get the right device paired for your child. So that's part of that AAC assessment. They literally are trialing different softwares with your student and seeing which one has the most probability of success. And then we also get support with helping insurance funding for the device. So I spoke about a few modalities. And so now what, right? Like, what do we want to do when we're determining the right modality? The few basic steps that I want everyone to consider is that you want to assess what is going to work best for your family. What is your child's profile? Consider their unique characteristics. Consider their specific needs, right? How are they already communicating? How can we expand on their current communication? Or are they not communicating at all, right? Think about the pros and cons of each method. So I outlined a few. So of course, can look into some of the resources I shared, or do your own research. There are a lot of options out there. So again, consider based on your child and your family. You can always consult with a BCBA and a speech language pathologist for more individualized support. And then once you decide on a modality, start teaching, right? I wrote monitor progress because if you're teaching and you're seeing it work really well, then let's keep going, right? Of course, if you're consulting with specialists, they'll help you a little bit more with this process, but see how things are going and you can always adjust if necessary. So we talked about our AAC and our alternative forms of communication. Another important part of communication is receptive language. So we want to increase receptive skills. Communication is not only limited to vocal communication. Receptive skills are super critical for any language development. Um, Receptive language is the ability to understand, process, and comprehend spoken or written language. This is like interpreting words, following directions, understanding gestures, responding to sounds, responding to their name, and being able to identify a wide range of stimuli within an environment. At Bierman, our early intensive behavioral intervention curricula are designed to teach learners to respond to their name or simple directions throughout their day within the context of their routine. These skills are super important for early learners to start developing the concept of language. This is why you tend to see some of the training, some of the, the sessions train hundreds of different receptive language targets, such as having pictures of different objects and identifying them by their name or their color or their function. These procedures are targeted in instruction to enhance these receptive skills. Um, I have a quote here that I like that by an old supervisor, Dr. Groh. She states that when basic receptive language skills are not readily acquired, a child misses many important learning opportunities, resulting in delays in overall language and subsequent acquisition of spoken language. So she essentially states that if we're not introducing or teaching receptive language, we're we're not providing them with the opportunities that for communication. So, how can we foster some of this receptive language at home? So, a few different ways, right? We want to increase the language opportunities. Um, the best thing that you can do is play with your child. play with them often and through a variety of items. While you're playing with them, talk to them through it. Talk to them about what the toy is doing or how to work with the toy. How, provide them with toys that you have to kind of guide them to how it works, right? So if it's like a potato head, for example, you're talking to them about the ears and the eyes and the nose, and you're saying, put it over here and put it on top of his head. All of this is creating language, and you're also showing them how the toy works, right? You can sing songs with them. So really easy one is head, shoulders, knees, and toes. As you're singing it, show them their head and shoulders and knees and toes. Start pairing that play with that receptive language. So as you're talking to them, during their play sessions, you also want to narrate throughout their day. Talk about what they're doing, give them directions, and help them follow them. Routines work really great with this. So having a steady routine like getting dressed or feeding is great to really strengthen those receptive skills. So if you're giving a direction like, let's go get your shoes, and you're already guiding them to their shoes. So you're pairing this and creating those contingencies and understanding. Involve them in daily activities like chores, putting clothes away. So as you're putting clothes away in the drawer, narrate what you're doing. You're matching the blue socks together and putting it in the top drawer. So again, creating those strong contingencies and involving them. So we also want to get into some functional communication. How can we use our modalities to increase the functional communication for our child? Start thinking about what your child typically engages with. What do they like? Um, I like to think about toys that quote unquote go away. So, like a snack or bubbles. So, for example, we're at a date bowl again, that pretzel example from earlier, but you're holding a preferred snack, but you have the rest in a bag in your hand. When you see their motivation for more, that's your opportunity to teach a response using their modality. um, Creating opportunities within their day to use their communication skills is how we're going to increase all of this functional communication. So at snack times, give them a few pieces at the table, keeping the bag out of reach. And then they're going to need to ask for help, right? So an opportunity for them to ask for help. You're blowing bubbles and they're having fun and they're excited, and then you stop, right? Are they going to tell you bubbles? Are they going to show you the picture of bubbles? Are they going to ask for more, right? Give them the opportunity to use their newly founded language. Same thing with puzzles. If they want to play with puzzles, give them the puzzle, but only 2 to 3 pieces. Identify that opportunity again for them to communicate and use functional communication. Books, last example, right? And but again, you can do this with anything that they are interested in. Think about their preferred items, put things out of reach on purpose, give them a few on purpose. Don't anticipate their needs. Give them the opportunity to request or communicate. Okay, so we are wrapping up. The key takeaways here are consider the pros and cons of each communication system. Um, think about all the ones that I went over, figure out how you can identify which ones are going to be the best for your child. Think about what could benefit your child the most. Consider their current needs, consider what they're currently already using, look into the resources provided. So again, this slideshow will be shared with you, and some of the websites are in there, some of the pictures of the items. So make sure that you are doing your own research. If you are interested in beginning one of these systems, contact your health provider for more information, and practice communication daily. This is an all the time thing. So definitely prioritize that. I wanted to again reiterate consulting with a professional. This webinar was meant to provide caregivers with resources for alternative methods of communication and increasing language as a whole. the examples and suggestions are not individualized, right? So I don't know any of your students. I'm just giving you some general ideas. You want to consult with a BCBA or a speech language pathologist who can work with you and your child and provide the individualized care and supports. Okay, so our last slide is I wanted to open up the floor to any questions. Feel free to write them in the chat and I will answer them to the best of my ability. I'm going to open up the chat now.
Thanks, Michelle. We did not have any questions throughout, so I will take that as a sign that your information was helpful and understandable. But if anybody does have any questions for any follow-ups or further information or clarifications of anything that Michelle went over, please feel free to pop that in. Michelle, I'm sorry, you don't have your, I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't have your email. I can put your email in
Yeah,
the chat.
yes, absolutely. I did not put it in.
No worries. This is Michelle, just making sure I'm spelling it all right. This is Michelle's email. I just put it into the chat in case anybody does have any follow-up questions or anything comes to mind after we say goodnight. We're available at any time. Thanks, Teresa. She said it was a good review and she uses SGDs, PACS, and ASL every day, particularly during snack time and mealtime. Um,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, snack time and meal times is such a great way to really establish those contingencies and they're especially if they're hungry, they're super motivated. That's
well, thank
awesome.
you everybody for coming. We again really appreciate your time. We hope this was helpful. If you do have any questions, you know where to find us, BiermanAutism.com. Yes, Bonnie, no problem. So the presentation has been recorded, and everybody who has registered, not just those who have arrived, will be receiving a link in their email. So all of you, as well as anybody else that was registered, will receive a link in your email. Generally, it takes 48 to 72 hours. We generally say give us a week, but it's usually a little faster than that. And from there, again, you'll have our information. And, thank you so much for coming. And please look out for our next parent webinar, which will be in quarter 2. We are aiming for May. So keep up with us on social media and you will see an invitation for that. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Have a wonderful
Thank you,
night, everybody.
everyone. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.